The Elder Gods by David and Leigh Eddings. Preface. The land of Draw, if we are to believe the sometimes fanciful legends of the region, has existed in its present location since the beginning of time. Father Earth is unstable, and other continents move hither and yon across the face of Mother Sea, wandering, ever wandering, in search of new places in which to abide. But the land of Draw, we are told, was firmly anchored to its present location by the will of the gods, and it shall remain ever so until the end of the world. Now, from whence this world came and why is far beyond human comprehension. But the legends of Draw maintain that it is the work of ancient gods, and the making of it was a task so enormous that the gods, immortal and omnipotent though they may be, oftentimes wearied of their labor. Now there were younger gods abroad in the land at this time, and great was their pity for their exhausted elders, and they urged their kin to rest while they themselves took up the burden of creation. And grateful beyond measure were the old ones, for they had labored well nigh unto death. And so they slept while creation continued uninterrupted in the hands of the younger gods. So it was that the elder gods slept for 25 eons, and then they awoke, refreshed and ready to resume their eternal task. And when they awoke, their younger counterparts were well ready to relinquish the task and go to their rest. And mountains rose up from out of the earth, and were worn down by weather and time. And Mother Sea brought forth life in many forms. And some of the creatures of Mother Sea came up on the dry face of Father Earth in search of a dwelling place. And time and place altered them there upon the face of Father Earth, and many were those alterations. Forms not seen before, and older forms died out as the creatures blindly groped for fulfillment. Now the gods of the land of Draw chose not to interfere in the growth and development of the creatures of their domains, for they wisely concluded that the creatures should follow their own course in response to the world around them. For truly, the world is in a constant state of flux, and a creature suitable for one era may well not survive in another. And the gods had come to realize that change must be a response to the world rather than some divine preconception. And constant time continued her stately march toward an end that none could know, and the cycles of labor and rest among the gods continued, even as Mother Sea and Father Earth watched but said nothing. Now the gods of the lands of Draw had divided the land, and each, younger or older, holds dominion over a certain portion of the land. There remains, however, a vast wasteland in the center that is not part of any of the four domains, be they east or west, north or south, for the wasteland of Draw is barren and without beauty. There is life there, however, but the life forms of the wasteland are unlike those of the rest of the land of Draw. The legends of Draw maintain that the life forms of the wasteland are the creations of that called the Vlag. The legends of Draw are uncertain as to the origins of the Vlag. Some maintain that it is no more than a nightmare, which one of the early gods experienced during their first long sleep. Other legends contend that the Vlag is vastly older than the gods, whose forms resemble those of humans, and that it was the lord of stinging insects and venomous reptiles, which have long since vanished from the faces of Mother Sea and Father Earth. All legends of Draw agree on one point, however. That called the Vlag was too impatient to give the creatures which served it sufficient time to follow this slow, natural process of development and alteration favored by the true gods of Draw, but rather it chose to manipulate their development so they might better serve it. And it came to the Vlag that its servants might be of greater value if they were not all the same. For a creature designed for one task and one only would be far more efficient than a more generalized creature. To achieve that end, the Vlag periodically enveloped itself in a woven cocoon in its dark nest in the center of the wasteland. And when it emerged from its cocoon, it was a creature of an entirely different aspect than it had been before. Then it tested the capabilities of its new form to determine its ability to perform its specific task, noting its strengths and weaknesses. And then once again, it enclosed itself in a cocoon. And when it emerged once more, the weaknesses were no longer there and the strengths had been enhanced. Thus, by experimentation, that called the Vlag altered and modified its own form to develop a highly specific creature. And once it was satisfied, it reproduced that creature by the thousands, so that it would have servants enough to achieve its ultimate goal. Then that called the Vlag returned to its nest and began again, creating yet another form with yet another specific task. And so it is that all of the varied creatures which emerge from the cocoon of the Vlag are not the creatures of the domains of the true gods of Dral, but rather a strange combination, part insect, part reptile, part warm-blooded animal. And each of these variations have specific tasks in its service to the Vlag. The one and only characteristic the creature of the wasteland share is an obsessive need to expand the domain of the Vlag until the entirety of the land of Dral lies in its grasp. And the Vlag sent forth many of its creatures to intrude themselves into the domain of the true gods of Dral, and carried those intruders back to the Vlag, everything which they had observed. And the Vlag considered each tiny nibble of truth which its servants brought to it, and after eons uncounted, it perceived a flaw which it could exploit during the transfer of power and authority from one generation of gods unto the next. For truly, the elder gods grew weary and forgetful as they longed for sleep, and the younger gods were yet only half awake. And the spirit of the Vlag was filled with anticipation at this revelation, and laid it then its plans, and marshaled its servants in preparation for a war whereby it could surely destroy the true gods of Dral. And there on the wasteland it dreamed of the day when its nest could expand into the more fertile regions of the land of Dral, where there would be much to eat, and where its need to spawn would no longer be restrained by the lack of food. And then the Vlag dreamed further, yearning for the day when the entirety of the world englobed would be its nest, and its children would grow to numbers beyond counting, and all other living things would be their food. Then and only then would the Vlag be content. Now, Mother Sea and Father Earth paid scant heed to the antics of any gods of any lands, and neither did they rest, for to them fell the task of maintaining the life of the creatures of earth and sea. And woe to him, human or divine, who threatened the perpetuation of life. For gentle though they may appear, Mother Sea and Father Earth had disasters beyond imagining at their disposal, should they appear necessary for the continuation of life. Now it came to pass long ago in the domain of the north that a half-mad hermit had a vision of that which would one day become reality. And in that vision he saw sleeping children whose dreams could thwart the designs of that called the Vlag. For the dreams could command, and Mother Sea and Father Earth could not disobey the commands of the dreamers. And most men of the land of Dral scoffed at the vision of the hermit, for his madness was clearly evident. But the gods of east and west, north and south, scoffed not, for the hermit's vision resounded deep within their souls, and they knew it to be true. And troubled were the true gods of the land of Draw, for they knew in their hearts that the arrival of the dreamers would change all the world, and nothing thereafter would ever be the same again. And the eons, as eons must, plodded on toward an uncertain future, and the younger gods grew older, and the cycle of their ascendancy neared its conclusion. And it is here that our story begins.